All right, everyone, welcome back to Wrestling with My Dad. This is episode 3. I am BLS, and along with me is my dad, who's in a great mood today, guys.
I'm always in a great mood after we got to review a WCW pay-per-view.
Yeah, this was actually surprisingly better than. Well, I mean, I think most of them are going to be better than I thought on the WCW side. This is Capital Combat 1990, and this was May 19th, 1990. At the DC Armory in Washington, D.C. Weird venue, was it? Do you think they could have sold out a bigger place?
They probably could have. They could have went to. I think they could have went to a bigger arena if they wouldn't have screwed up the printing of the tickets and did all that. But I mean, it's a 10,000 seat arena, but they had to block a lot of it off because of their cameras and stuff. Really, after everybody finally made it in there, it was pretty much to full capacity. But I think they could have filled a bigger arena than this.
Yeah, I think it was an odd choice for a venue for this show, especially with the RoboCop promotion. I think they could have got more seats. I don't know. Madonna's Vogue is number 1 on the Billboard charts in the midst of a heated rivalry with Sinead O'Connor's "Nothing Compares to You." We'll splice in a little bit of the. Is it Sinead O'Connor or Sinead O'Connor?
Sinead O'Connor.
Sinead O'Connor.
It's actually a song written by Prince.
Oh wow, okay. So you're right about that. I didn't even make that connection. Yeah, we'll splice that in right here. You can check out that hotness.
I can eat my dinner in a fancy restaurant, but nothing can take away this blues, 'cause nothing compares to
you. The top news story in the U.S. was New York Newsday reporter Jimmy Breslin was suspended for a racial slur. So not unlike our current time, and the most things haven't changed a lot.
Papa John's, did he?
Not yet. That's later on. Double Dragon for TurboGrafx 16 was the best-selling video game at this point in time, which is weird. I thought it would be a Nintendo game, but not this time. So yeah, like you mentioned earlier, there was a printing error that had the bell time starting at 8 o'clock, but it actually started at 7. So the first 3 matches have like half the seats filled, which is about 3,000, little over 3,000 people in the arena, which
people
is
scrambling to their seats. Hey, what the hell?
Yeah, you could see all the people in the background like running through the aisle, like trying to get sat down. There's just lines of them. It's kind of
thought it was daylight savings time or some shit. What happened?
It's a very WCW move. So the first 3 matches of the show were not released on Turner Home Video, and the first time they were ever available to the public was when WWE Network came out, which I thought was really interesting, but I assume it's because of the issues with the crowd not being there.
It was, but it really sucks because if you're thinking about the first 3 matches, there were some people in those matches that should have been on the pay-per-view. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the matches here in a minute, but in the first 3 matches, there were some people that should have got some exposure, but we'll go along with it, and a lot of them actually ended up in WWE later on and actually made huge stars of themselves. So WCW really dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah, they did. This card is absolutely stacked with amazing wrestlers.
I was surprised. Like we talked before we started. I saw this pay-per-view live, not live in person, but I saw it on TV when it happened. And I was so angry at the outcome of it because there were some great matches, some good wrestling. There were some great finishes too. But the main event had a really crappy finish. The RoboCop thing was just stupid. And I was very upset with it. And I really don't think I've watched this pay-per-view since 1990 when it came out. And I watched it last night, and I was like, man, this is a damn good pay-per-view. There's some really good wrestling matches in this. Big difference from last week's Royal Rumble.
Oh, definitely. Any match on this card beats the shit out of the Bushwhackers versus the Rougeaus.
Except for one thing that was the same as the Royal Rumble that we watched.
What's that?
Tony Schiavone is
back. Oh,
yeah,
that's right. This is 2 weeks in a row with Tony Schiavone, which is
good old Schiavone.
It's amazing how different. Well, he's a host, so he's not even really on commentary, but he just fits WCW so much better, I think.
Yeah. He probably was waiting outside the door and said, please just let me say something on the mic. WWE sucked.
It sucked there. Vince was mean. We have a really good commentary team tonight. We have Bob Caudle and Jim Ross, which is really good, honestly.
Bob Cottle's always he's a classic. He's been around since I don't know when, since wrestling probably started. He and Lance Russell, and he's one of the old school announcers. This is where he was getting a little bit. I don't know. There were some wonky things that he said that was kind of.
He's a little geriatric at this point.
Yeah, he was getting there. And the next WCW pay-per-view, we do the Bash. He says some great ones on that one too. I remember it's the same announce team. And my dog is moving my entire laptop desk just to get under my leg.
Natty wants to be here.
She's scared to death of this story.
She's been on every show so far.
Yeah, Natty's a bigger star than we're gonna be. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I totally forgot what it was. Oh, Schiavone. Yeah. It was nice to have him back.
Yeah, he belongs in WCW. He's not a WWE commentator. He's a sports commentator.
Yeah, and as we talked about in the Royal Rumble, they have somebody in their ear the entire time they're commentating. That doesn't happen anywhere else. So it was interesting to. Thank you, Natty. I'm sorry, guys. There's an earthquake in Florida. Yeah, it was really. It was difficult to watch him in the WWE with somebody in his ear the whole time. There were so many quiet spots and so many just muted. It was crazy. But and here once he gets back on commentary, it changes.
Yeah, and that'll be soon. He's not at the Bash, is he? Is it him and Bob Caudle at the Bash?
Gordon Soley. I don't remember. We'll have to see. I can't remember Shivani, but I know Bob Caudle and Jim Ross are the commentators.
Okay. One of the things about this show and every wrestling show that bothers me is when they do the national anthem, which I understand because they're in Washington, D.C., but the whole, I don't know, I think the whole national anthem before wrestling shows is just really corny. Like, it just doesn't, even before sporting events, I don't really get it. I think it's just kind of a waste of time.
Well, it's a tradition. It's a tradition that's been going on for years. So wrestling is no different. They decided they wanted to do that. Vince was more towards, he liked to do America the Beautiful.
Yeah.
At the beginning of WrestleManias. But if you notice the other events in WWE, they still do the national anthem, but they don't show them on the pay-per-view. Okay. And I'm pretty sure most of the pay-per-views in WCW were the same. They did it before, and I think they just showed it this time because it was the DC Armory and they did something a little different.
Yeah, I think this is the only time it ever made sense. Our first match of the night, let's get into it. Kevin Sullivan, Cactus Jack, and Bam Bam Bigelow versus the Road Warriors and Norman the Lunatic. And the first thing I noticed while I was watching this match is I don't hate Norman nearly as much in this one.
No, he actually went well. I mean, I forgot what the first match was, and as soon as it said the Road Warriors and his partner Norman, I was like, "Oh, you got to be shitting me."
And me too.
But it was funny. I mean, the Road Warriors come down on the back of the motorcycle, of course, because they're not allowed to drive for whatever reason. And then Norman comes down on a scooter, which I think it'd have been funnier to have somebody else driving a scooter and have Norman on the back, but I don't know how you would have pulled that off. I think it would have been great, or somebody pulling him in a wagon or something.
Man, a little radio flyer with Norman.
And then they rip his shirt off, and it's just he was fun. He was fun in this one.
Yeah, the Road Warriors were super awesome in this match. The camera work is really close. They're really tight in on it, and I think it's because the venue is smaller, but it makes every match so much better. Like, everything looks really snug because the guys know the cameras are there. So everybody worked a little extra tight, which made it a good match.
I think the whole production as a whole in this one was better than Wrestle War, the one in February that we just did. The lighting, the venue, the crowd was more into it. It just seemed like the production all around was better. The camera work was better. It was really, this is where they were really starting to step up their A game. And then when we get into the Bash, it gets even better and better. They do nothing but improve until they get to a point where Herb just comes up with crazy ideas. But yeah, everything was good. The camera work and everything, man. I'll tell you, Animal. Oh my God, this dude has a power slam I've never seen. I forgot how good his power slam is. Animal
was a monster in this. I thought, I remember the Steiner's match from Wrestle War. I thought Animal was like Rick Steiner level in this. Like, he stole it, I thought.
Yeah, he did. You mentioned it too, the crisscross and the drop downs, and they do a spot he does a spot with Cactus Jack where they're doing the drop downs and the crossover and this and that and the leapfrogs and all this, and then all of a sudden he catches Cactus and a picture perfect textbook power slam. It's just like, damn, man, he's just
it was gorgeous.
so good. And and if you think about it, when you look at the 6 guys that are in the ring right now, for that, well, not right now, but in that match, 3 of these or 4 of these guys end up being huge stars in WWE. Now, last week we talked about it that a lot of people leave NWA and they go to WWE and they get kind of trashed. Terry Taylor and some others that they put a goofy gimmick on and they just don't make it. But if you think about it, there's 4 guys in this that are actually, I thought they were all Hall of Famers except for one that will be a future Hall of Famer, and that's Bam Bam Bigelow. 5 years later, he headlined WrestleMania with Lawrence Taylor.
And that was actually pretty good for Lawrence Taylor.
Yeah, it was. And good for Bam Bam,
Yeah.
Gave him some mainstream and Scott was a great wrestler for his size. He was one of the first big men that could really, there's my dog in the back trying to grab my belt. That is why my camera keeps shaking. Once she makes it over this way, you'll see the camera shaking again.
You get a pass because it's a dog.
And she's scared to death of thunder, so she's really freaking out. But yeah, so Cactus, of course, Mick Foley, he's in the Hall of Fame. The Road Warriors in the Hall of Fame, and Bigelow, I'm sure, will find his place in the Hall of Fame soon. He died too soon. He was such a great talent.
It's really weird that Bam Bam's not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I had to look it up because I thought he would be, but he's not in the Hall of Fame yet, which surprises me a lot. He should be. He was really amazing.
We're going to see a
guy
lot.
His size that could just do the stuff that he did.
We're going to see so much of his career, too. I'm so excited to watch more Bam Bam matches.
There's a lot of people like that I'm noticing. It's like, man, it's good to see these guys again.
Yeah, it's weird watching wrestling and not instantly cringing at it, even though a lot of it is cringeworthy. Cactus really puts a boost on his crazy shit in this match. He takes his famous stair bump where he'll run straight into the stairs and hit him with his knee and then flip over him. Does that at the guardrail, which is even more impressive because the guardrail is probably about 6 inches higher than the steps are.
Yeah, he flew right on the crowd and almost kicked some.
Just kicked him right in the face.
There was like this business guy out there, looked like Jake from State Farm, was sitting in the front row, and he about kicked his teeth in. He flew over and landed on this. And those chairs aren't the old folding chairs; those are those big plastic chairs, like in the elementary schools. They'll break your ass if you land on them. Yeah, Cactus was crazy. He was at a point in his career where he was going to do anything to get over. He wanted to make it, and he sacrificed his body. And man, he was just fun to watch. He was a lot of fun to watch.
After that spot, Hawk grabs the wooden steps and throws them at Cactus in front of the guardrail, which is super risky. If this were in WWE, everybody in this match would have been fired the next night.
Oh, yeah. Now insert Bob Connell senile comment number 1. He just hurled those steps at him. Those things weigh a couple 100 pounds.
That's a riveting observation by Mr. Cottle there.
Yeah, I don't think they're solid wood. They weigh a couple 100 pounds.
No,
all right.
They probably weigh maybe 50 pounds, I would say.
Maybe back in your day wood weighed 50 pounds, but now it doesn't. But yeah, I thought that was funny. I caught that and I was like, man, check that out. I was all into the wrestling. Then I heard Bob Cottle say that and I was like, oh, come on.
Those are my favorite commentators though to watch. I love that shit.
Jim Ross is just sitting there looking at him like, the hell?
We got a show coming up. It'll happen sometime in our podcast, but I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he's the one where it's a WWE pay-per-view and he's like, how much does that guy weigh? How much does that guy weigh? Like,
I don't know.
is he really a dentist? Like, I can't remember what his name is for the life of me right now, but I can't wait to review that show. Cactus. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to jump in on you. Cactus almost kills himself in this match. Like honestly, almost kills himself. He ends up flying over the top rope, doing a neck breaker on Norman, and he almost lands on top of his. Like he goes straight down to the floor and just must have barely missed landing on his head.
In Cactus, I don't remember him doing. I remember him doing like the clotheslines over the top and things like that. Now my phone's going.
Rocking out.
This is going great. Yeah, but Cactus, he was. I forgot how crazy he was then. I mean, I remember the elbow drops and the stuff like that. But that was crazy. The neck breaker. He just flew over the top rope like he was Rey Mysterio.
I was sitting in my office and Kate was in the other room watching TV, and I said, "Holy shit!" And she came running in because she thought I hurt myself or something.
I was shocked at that. I was really shocked at that move.
Yeah, and then I remembered he's still here like 30 years later, so he must have been okay.
Yeah.
But overall, I thought that was an awesome opening match. There was a lot.
It was really good. I was impressed when I first heard who was in it. I was like, oh man, because they had some good guys in it. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm very disappointed in. If you remember back at the last one we did, Wrestle War, they were teasing a feud between Doom and the Road Warriors. Now we haven't gone back and looked at the clashes yet, and I'm sure there was a clash before this, and I meant to look at it before we got on here, but I don't know if they had a match then or not. But what I would have not. I mean, the Road Warriors are not openers. I would have used them in a different capacity. I think it was kind of a weak use for great talent. I mean, the other four guys that were in the match, yeah, they were mid-carders at the time, and they could have done something with them. But put the Road Warriors in a filler beginning match the way it was kind of like they belonged with Doom.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think I would put the Steiners with somebody else because there were a couple filler matches that didn't really need to be there. They could have constructed that a little better.
I would have rather seen Doom and the Road Warriors for sure. I wanted to see it last show, and they should have used it as a way to push it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would have been great.
And then I would have liked to have seen the Rock and Roll not the Rock and Roll, the Midnight Express versus the Steiners instead. That's what I would have done.
And that does happen down the road for the U.S. titles, which I just gave away that match. But yeah, later on they do end up going against the Midnight Express, and I don't even remember seeing the match. It was on TV, and it baffles me that you would take a Midnight Express versus the Steiner brothers and have it on TV.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be a free match. That should be a pay-per-view.
Yeah, there's a lot of great tag teams right now, like we talked about during Wrestle War, and it seems, I don't know, they like to play it safe with them, and it's kind of a shame because the tag teams still are the best thing on the show, I think, and there's a bunch of them.
I agree.
Our second match. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to?
No, you're good.
All right, our second match of the night: Johnny Ace and Mean Mark Callis. And it's weird because they announce him from being from Metropolis, which number one, which one? And second of all, JR on commentary the whole time is going over his real life background in sports and coming from Texas. So it's like, just say he's from fucking Texas.
Well, I mean, that was when he was with the Skyscrapers. He still had Teddy Long as his manager. This is the last pay-per-view that you have Teddy Long as his manager, and then he ends up picking up Paulie dangerously. But yeah, they had him from Metropolis because they were still trying to do the skyscraper image that he was one of the skyscrapers, so that's why they brought that up. But it was just, I think they just, Gary Capetta was just reading cards. That's all he does.
Oh yeah, it's a minor complaint, but I mean, compared to what we saw in Royal Rumble.
But it was funny when I caught it. I was like, Metropolis.
Yeah, like what the fuck is that? There's like
Superman.
Tons of those. Yeah, I thought that too.
His neighbors with Clark Kent.
The thing that impressed me the most in this match from Mark, and he's still really early in his career, but his vertical leap is fucking ridiculous. He hits an elbow drop. Well, he misses the elbow drop, but he goes for one. And it's just, he gets like 5 feet off the ground with it.
He gets some hang time, yeah. And then he finishes him off. I mean, I love that he used the heart punch back then. Johnny Ace back then was pretty much coming at the end of his, he was about to leave for All Japan Pro Wrestling. So I think this might have been his last match or one of his last matches there, and then he went to All Pro to finish his career and ended up at WWE as People Power John Laurinaitis. So they put him in there, kind of building Mean Mark a little bit. And again, going back to the videotape that they did of this, and they cut out those 3 matches. This is one that should have had Mark in it. He's really, they dropped the ball. They dropped the ball with this guy. He was so talented, and he was catching on so quick, and he was a student of the game. He wanted to learn. He wanted to know, but he just got mixed in the shuffle. But Vince capitalized on that and got a hold of him, turned him into the Undertaker, and man, what a cash cow he ended up with.
I would love to know like how things would have played out if he hadn't gone to WWE. Like I'm sure he would have been a big star in WCW, but he would have been nowhere near the Undertaker status.
No, they were trying to put together different images with him. Of course, Stan Stasiak used to have the heart punch, and they put a glove on him, and I think that's what they were trying to do, was kind of get to that stage with him to make him the badass Stan Stasiak type character with the heart punch, because nobody ever used that after Stan did. But to walk the ropes the way he did and do the elbow drop, people haven't seen that since the spoiler. So he really took a lot of elements from different old school wrestlers and made a really good package. And then when they made him into the Undertaker, he still used a lot of those same moves. But he was just all around. If Mark was wrestling in the 70s,
Oh my God.
he still would have been, just any era, he would have been a great star.
Yeah, it's really cool to see him in this capacity because you pretty much never see this again after the Undertaker gimmick, where he's just kind of he's himself, I think, like in this instance.
We'll see him in the next pay-per-view at the Bash.
I thought Ace actually looked pretty good in this match. I'm not a fan of his, but he looked good. He sold well.
He did, and Johnny Ace was not bad as a singles wrestler. When they put him with Shane and gave him a skateboard, it was stupid. And unfortunately, that's what he's more known for in his wrestling career than other than people power and being the vice president of talent relations and whatever else he was. But he was pretty sound. He was pretty good. I mean, he wasn't like anything like his brother Animal. He was, he was tall and lanky, and he could do a lot of the jumps and flips and things like that. But he wasn't a terrible wrestler. But I think he did a good job of putting Mark over in this one. He even made Mark look like $1 million.
Yeah, he absolutely did. There's one point in the match where Ace is thrown to the outside and Teddy kicks him in the ribs a couple times. And then he walks to the side of the ring and the ref asks him, like, did you kick him in the ribs? You kick him? And he says he wouldn't do that. And last week Teddy told us he couldn't tell a lie. So Teddy Long did not. He did not kick Ace in the ribs in this match.
Teddy was a big star in this show. Teddy was great.
I like Teddy.
He was in like 3 different matches, and he did really well in this one. He was entertaining.
I mostly remember Teddy for being the GM on SmackDown. So like watching this is really cool because he was
really
talented
before this.
Yeah.
He's really awesome.
Yeah, I liked it. Like you said, Mark gets the heart punch, which is just a straight punch to the middle of your chest. It's actually dangerous. If you were to do it for real on somebody, you could really fuck somebody up with
I'm sure it could give somebody a little bit of a headache for a little while.
And then
they're like miserable for a little while.
After the heart punch, he climbs the ropes, like you said, does the walk, and drops an elbow from the middle of the ring on the ropes, which is astonishing for a guy his size.
Yeah.
And then we get
he's over 300 pounds and just he can walk the ropes like it's nothing. He's definitely gifted. So
when they do the replays for this match, JR introduces us to his new contraption called the Slam-O-Meter, which gave the elbow drop a knee.
5 minutes.
Yeah, it lasted for 5 minutes. It was stupid as fuck, and they never talked about it again, which I'm super thankful for. I'm glad they didn't try to push it and make it work, because it wasn't a good idea at all. It's just stupid.
Yeah, they had that. They had a referee helmet cam that'll come into place. And they did a lot of crazy, stupid shit. That just was just.
I can't wait.
They were trying to be innovative but that was mostly Jim Herd, I think, coming up with stupid ideas of trying to make things happen. And I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but yeah, I mean, it was just an element of they were trying to stick it in there to make it interesting, but no one really cared.
In our next segment, we see Gordon Solie in the back. He's standing in front of Sting in RoboCop's locker room. And apparently the reason that we needed RoboCop in this show, and this is important, is because the 4 horsemen had threatened to attack the little Stingers. So the horsemen were going to beat up a bunch of children, and that's why RoboCop had to be here.
I would rather see them beat up children myself. I mean,
holy shit, could you imagine the heat they would have?
I mean, nowadays we're popping eyeballs out and stuff, so I mean, why not have them come out and beat up on a couple little kids?
I'm down for it. I mean, if
put a bunch of crayons in a sock and just beat them over the head.
I mean, Kenny Omega can wrestle a 9-year-old. Why can't the Horsemen?
Marco Stunt. They already have a 9-year-old in AEW.
Oh, he legitimately also wrestled a 9-year-old. I don't know.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, you got to look that up.
I didn't know that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, that really happened.
Cool. The whole lead up to RoboCop was crazy, and I mean the locker room that he was staying in was all smoky and stuff, which I guess I didn't know vaping existed back then, but obviously RoboCop was a big vapor back in that day.
Big fan.
Yeah.
He needs tobacco. Or nicotine.
I couldn't. I can't even. I don't even have any words to describe it. I was trying to write down notes for that interview, and I was just like, I can't even justify this crap.
I wanted to skip it because honestly, if the RoboCop stuff was kept out of this show, it would have been been a really good show. It was a really good show. Would have been way better without the RoboCop stuff.
Yeah.
Next up, Mike Rotunda and Tommy Rich, which I know he's one of your boys in your boy stable there. They take on the Samoan SWAT team, which is Fatu, who would later become the Sultan, and Rikishi. and Samu, who was pretty much always just Samu.
Yeah, he was the Tonga kid for a little while, or the Tonga kid he was for a little while. And then he ends up, they end up in WWE also as the Head Shrinkers.
Yep.
Now there's another story behind this also. They were supposed to take on Zink and Pillman for the U.S. tag titles.
Okay.
They didn't show up to an April 9th TV taping, so they were punished and taken off of there. And the match was given to the Midnight Express, so they stuck these guys with Tommy Rich and Mike Rotunda, who basically weren't even on the card, so they just threw them together and put them in this match.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
This pay-per-view has, you said Tommy Rich. And this pay-per-view has 5 of my favorite all-time wrestlers of all, big-time favorite wrestlers of all time. And Tommy Rich is definitely one of them. And I love that Tommy Rich came back in the 90s, because most of the time that I was a big fan of his, I only caught glimpses of him every once in a while in Georgia Championship Wrestling, but I mainly read about him in the magazines and different things he was doing. I saw a lot of his matches with Buzz Sawyer and things like that, but I was always a big fan. He was a huge baby face back then in the 80s, early 80s. Just huge, probably one of the biggest baby faces there were. He may even been more popular than Dusty Rhodes at one point. He was so big. Guy never went to a gym in his life. He just had the look and had the style, and he could do it. He had one of the greatest arm drags since Ricky Steamboat. But I was glad to see him come back in the 90s and try to make a go of it again, and he did. He did really, really well. He was in good shape. He could move well. He was fun to watch, but I think it was just too little, too late at that point. I would have liked to see him hold the TV title or something, but they didn't do anything with him.
I didn't get a lot from him. He's not in this match a whole lot, honestly. He tags in for a couple minutes, but he's mostly out. He has to be older at this point.
Yeah, he was. I think he was probably close to 40 by now, if not in his 40s. And he was only in the match long enough to get beat. But he like in the Bash. When we get to the Bash, he wrestles Harley Race, and it's actually one of the best matches on the card.
That sounds
and
awesome.
It's surprising to see these two wrestle each other, but it's fast paced. Believe it or not, it's fast paced. It's really good, and it's a fun match to watch. This one, like I said, is just a filler match, so they stuck him with Rotunda and put him against the Samoans because they really didn't have anything else to do with them. Of course, I got my Yowie Wowie shirt on now today because, Mike Rotunda, Bray Wyatt's dad, why not? It's the only shirt that I have that had anything to do with this pay-per-view.
I have a Mean Mark Callis shirt on that I'm super proud of.
Sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. I thought the SWAT team in this match, I thought they were pretty good as heels. Like, I thought they did a good job getting heat. At first, I was cold at first. I was like, man, this is like, they're just like every other heel team. But the whole like traditional, they need to do their little prayer thing before the match.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That whole tradition was fun.
It was
funny because they took so damn long to do it and people were just getting pissed. That's why they were doing it.
I was starting to get pissed. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, this is working. It's good.
That was probably all Rikishi's idea, Fat too. He's always had a good mind for all this. Those kind of shenanigans to get people pissed off and get them all warmed up for, the ass kicking they were about to receive.
Yeah, it was also it was nice to see like foreign guys, because in WWE foreigners are evil right now. But like it was nice. They are heels, but they're not just dumb savages like I know Vince would have booked them as. So they have more depth to their character, which I thought was good. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, and the Samoans have really evolved as far as their how do I say it? I don't want to say their character because it's not really much of a character. It's their lifestyle. But there's so many great Samoans from that family that are. Rikishi is the father of the Usos,
right?
And they're not the typical Samoan savages back in this day. They're really a technically sound team. You got Roman Reigns also, who's part of the same family that just. You don't label him as a Samoan, and The Rock. I think The Rock broke that whole stereotype of the Samoans came out all wild with crazy hair and banging their heads off stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, The Rock did break the mold on that. But yeah, this is really cool because you have the first generation of future stars in this match, which is neat. You got Mike Rotunda, Rikishi. They would we'd have the Usos. We'd have Bray Wyatt, Bo Dallas for a hiccup. So yeah, this was cool. I like this match overall. I thought it was good. I thought it should have been more of a squash. I mean, which it basically was just a drawn-out squash match. If they could have had this match be 3 minutes shorter, it would have been a much better match.
Yes, I agree. Some of the matches did drag on a little bit longer than they need to. I think I would have given Teddy and Paul a little bit more time. That was just funny as hell. But I mean, the last 3 matches were all about 20 minutes in length, so they were good because when I was watching it, I was thinking, man, these are going to be long matches, but they were long but entertaining. And when they're entertaining and they keep you vested, then it doesn't seem like it's 20 minutes. It doesn't seem like you're falling asleep. And this is kind of one that was like, all right, I'm over it. Let's go. After a little while, but the rest of the matches on the card were really, really good.
Yeah, I felt that too. I was ready for this to be over, and it does end when the Samoans win, because Samu comes off the top rope with an axe handle while Tommy Rich has Fatu in a sleeper hold, and he gets the pin off of that axe handle.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's whatever.
They hurt.
Yeah, I mean, it's
another wonky finish.
Yeah, it's a whatever. Not the best thought out, but it worked, I guess. The over the top roll is something I wanted to talk about. So currently in WCW at this time, if you throw somebody over the top rope and the referee decides that it's deliberate and it's the right time of month, the right time of year, the moon's in the right spot in the sky, then it's a DQ. But otherwise it's not. And it's hilarious because this rule came from do you want to tell it? You probably know it better than me.
What's that?
The over the top rule, who came up with that? I think it was Jim Herd.
Well, no, the over the top rope was always there for NWA. WWE never really had that.
Oh,
rule.
really? I thought this was like a temporary WCW thing.
No, the temporary WCW thing will come in a couple years when Bill Watts takes over.
Right.
And you're not allowed to jump off the top rope.
Oh, okay.
So he makes jumping off the top rope illegal, and he also takes all the mats off from outside. So you're just exposed to concrete, which isn't that big of a deal because they were about 2 years early. No, the over the top rope for NWA was always if you deliberately throw somebody over the top rope, you're disqualified. But if they go over because of momentum, then it's not a disqualification. So if you're clothesline over the top, or you fall over the top, or whatever the case is, if it's from your own momentum, then it wasn't a disqualification. But if you're deliberately thrown over, then it's a disqualification.
What do you think that's a good rule? I think it's kind of dumb. No, it's absolutely stupid.
No, I think they did it just to help with finishes, because it helped the heels a lot. Because when the referee isn't looking, you could throw them over the top rope and make the fans go batshit crazy. I throw them over, and I think that's a reason why they did it. It helped the heels out quite a bit, but it wasn't. Who cares? Everybody was like, just let them throw them over.
Yeah, they should either get rid of the rule or not throw them over, because every 5 minutes they're just trying to justify why there's not a DQ for somebody getting the thrown over, and it's just stupid. After this match, we have a segment where the Steiners do a promo, and the only thing I've written down about it is, Paul Ellering versus Teddy Long in a hair versus hair match. The first thought I had about this is they have the hairdresser. I don't really know who he is, and I didn't write his name down. But they have the hairdresser come to the ring, and I'm like, I wonder how much they paid that guy versus how much they paid for the cage that they're going to put Jim Cornette and Sting in later on.
Yeah, I don't know either. Why do you need a high-end hairdresser to come in and shave? He didn't even shave his head. He gave him a trim.
I want to know what the backstage conversation was about that before that happened, because it was weird.
I have no idea, and I don't know. I never even heard of the guy. Not that I pay attention to famous hairdressers,
especially in 1990.
Exactly. Obviously, I had a mullet, so I didn't go to anybody special. But yeah, that was a little wonky of the match, but the match itself was great. I really enjoyed watching it too. Man, Teddy was pretty damn buff. I was surprised.
So was Paul. I wasn't expecting them to. The other thing I noticed was I didn't remember either of these guys ever having hair, so I was surprised when they did have hair, because I'm like, what's the point? Like,
yeah, they put 2 balding guys in there in a hair versus hair match. That's pretty creative, but. Yeah, Paul was always, even back when he was a wrestler, he was a cardio freak. That guy, there was one time on Georgia Championship Wrestling, or it may have been World Championship Wrestling, they called it by then, I'm not sure, but they had him out there during the whole 2-hour broadcast doing steps on a folding chair. He would just step up on the chair and step down. He did that for 2 hours straight throughout the whole broadcast, just to improve his cardio. But he was in great cardio condition. If you look at him, he's not really chiseled and huge like a Road Warriors, but he's in very, very good condition.
Yeah.
And Teddy had a six-pack. I was like, damn, man.
Yeah, Teddy came out.
He was built like that.
Teddy came out dressed like a boxer with his name being announced as Sugar Ray Teddy Long, and he looked great. I was like, damn, man, like he could be in there. He's in good shape.
He worked out. He took care of himself. So yeah, I was pretty impressed.
The thing that impressed me the most in this match is that the boxing gloves were loaded, which is brilliant because when you think about it, why would you wear boxing gloves to a wrestling match when you can be barefisted? Because boxing gloves are made to protect people, not to hurt people. But then he has like, I don't know, I just imagine they were brass knuckles or whatever. He had a pair of brass knuckles in his boxing glove, and Ellering takes the glove off and hits Teddy with the brass knucks for the win, and that's the finish. This match was like maybe 2 minutes long, which
it wasn't very long at all.
Perfect time for a comedy spot, I think.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'd like to see a few more minutes of it, and I think I would have. I liked the glove idea, but I kind of would have liked to see Ellering come off the top with a lariat.
Oh yeah, that would have been cool.
I would like to say that. But yeah, it was good solid match. Ellering tried to put on the glove and couldn't get the glove on, so he just pulled it back and wailed him with it. I'm not sure they ever said that it was a no disqualification match, but obviously it must have been because he hit him with the glove. So they allowed it.
They didn't even print the tickets right. I don't think the rules.
Yeah, he didn't throw him over the top rope at least.
Yeah, at least he didn't go that far. We couldn't.
Now he should have hit him with the glove and then threw him over the top rope, and then we'd see if it was a disqualification.
Teddy Long is supposed to get his head shaved, but instead they just cut off his ponytail, and his hair looks exactly the same otherwise. But he hides.
Pretty much got the horseshoe look, like
yeah.
Pretty much. Fred what's his name? Sanford.
Oh yeah, he does. He
horseshoe cut.
So he ducks into the ref shirt and has the ref escort him to the back, which is even. I mean, it made it funnier because his hair didn't even really change. So. But he's like super embarrassed for some reason. What the fuck ever. Let's see. Oh, we got a Horseman promo next, and it's Ole, Sid, Arn, and Flair. So Barry Windham, why? Do you know why Sid is here instead of? I know Windham shows up later, but why is Sid here?
Sid joined the Horsemen on one of the TV shows they had. I can't remember which one it was, if it was Main Event or which one it was, but he and Barry both joined the Horsemen. And then this was weeks before this that happened. And then Barry, where's Barry Windham? Where's Barry Windham? Well, Barry Windham played a big part in a few of the pay-per-views of just being inconspicuous by his absence and then suddenly having something to do with the main event. And this is the second time in this year that this will happen, actually.
Wasn't Barry one of the original Horsemen, or am I remembering wrong?
He was. Well, not the originals. He took Lex's spot. When Lex left the Horsemen, they brought Barry Windham in, which is another. It was a great turn the way they did it. Barry and Luger were the tag team champions, and they fought Arn Anderson and Tully in Jacksonville, and Barry turns on Luger.
Oh, okay.
And that's where he becomes a Horseman.
That's
pretty much where it started, and then Barry left for a little while, went to WWE, and became either the Sniper or the Widowmaker or whatever they decided they want to do with him. He said, hell with that, I'm going back here. And they put him back in the Horsemen. So it wasn't a real strong version of the Horsemen. I mean, Barry, Arn, and Flair are perfect. Ole was pretty decent in the managerial position, but Sid just didn't fit. Sid's not a Horseman.
No, Sid doesn't fit at all. Sid's almost like an Ultimate Warrior type character, I think.
Yeah, just a big, strong, he needed to be on his own. He didn't fit the Horseman mold.
The best thing about this promo to me was that Flair tells Luger that he's half the man that he is, and it instantly reminded me of the Sid promo where he's talking to Scott Hall, and he says, "You are half the man that I am, and I have half the brains that you do." And I'm going to cut that in right here because everybody should see it.
But you know and I know that you are only half the man that I am. And I have half the brain that you do. But we just a weak. We tried to make you look like a jackass.
But that was the takeaway.
It was not the greatest interviewer. Sometimes he could come across really good, but then he'd stumble over his own words and come across just looking like a moron. But yeah, Sid was Yeah, I like Sid more now when I see him in interviews and stuff than I did back then. He was a little hot tempered. I remember one time in Altoona seeing him bust a phone. It was a phone booth, one of the old pay phones,
Yeah.
and he smashed the phone because the local Gold's Gym wouldn't let him come in there and work out. There was something going on with his membership, and they wouldn't let him go work out, so he smashed the phone. Roid rage. Yeah, so he was pretty hot tempered back then, but and he just wasn't that good.
No.
He needed a lot more to go. Once he got to WWE and started working with some real professionals, he started working with Shawn and started working with Brett and Undertaker, and he was really he really grew a lot in WWE. And his second time around in WCW, he was more ready, but they didn't use him correctly. But yeah, back then he wasn't. He was really great.
I always thought he was okay, but he never really stood out as being that special to me.
No, he was a big, powerful guy, but like I said, his real personality didn't come out until he got to WWE and actually used the Psycho Sid gimmick that worked for him.
That was the best use for Sid, I think. The next match is oh man, it's up there for one of my favorites on the show. The Midnight Express versus Brian Pillman and the Z-Man, who are the U.S. Tag Champs.
This was a great match. It was a really solid, good match, which you put the Midnight Express, again, I say this all the time, the Midnight Express, you can put them in there with anybody and they're going to have a good match. And Pillman and Z-Man have been tagging up for a little while, so they kind of had their stuff together, and it was a good, fluid match. The only part about this match that I could not understand for the life of me that makes absolutely no sense is why would you put Jim Cornette in a cage?
Oh, I know. What do you know why they did it?
Well, it was so he wouldn't interfere. It was part of the gimmick of the match. But Cornette's gold. You got to have Cornette out of the cage. And the heat that he can bring with the crowd, it's oh my God, the guy is so good. And then they put him in a cage, and that just ended that. That went away. So I don't get it. I don't understand for the life of me why they did that.
He still got a little bit in, not as much as he should have, but there's a spot where he runs around the ring and then he runs into the ring trying to get away from Brian Pillman and Tom Zank because they want to throw him in the cage. And he runs into Nick Patrick and takes a shoulder block like Goldberg was standing there, which I thought was really funny. And then the Z-Man and Pillman get him and throw him in the cage. I really like Z-Man and Pillman as a tag team. The last show it felt thrown together, but on this show they're really fluid together, doing a lot of cool stuff. There's a spot where they hit a stereo monkey flips out of the corners, and then Pillman's on the apron. And the Z-Man grabs Pillman and flings the rope and has him come in for a double clothesline on the Midnight, which I thought was awesome. Loved it.
Yeah, it was a fun match to watch. Very athletic, a lot of fun. Pillman and Z-Man, like I said, they had a little time in. The last pay-per-view, they were a little sloppy. It was the Freebirds they fought, I think, right?
Yeah.
They wrestled the Freebirds.
Yeah.
It was a little sloppy. Right now I'm watching this Horseman behind us, man. I forgot to mention how good Arn is on that microphone. My God, that guy's... I don't think there's anybody better interview. There's not a better interview. Maybe Dusty, but Arn is just good. But yeah, they teamed for a little while longer and had their stuff together. And I'm sure the Midnights probably went over it. I know Bobby, likes to go over some spots and stuff like that before the match. So they probably went over the match several times before they got out there and did it. But they look good together. Everybody worked really, really well together.
Brian Pillman has a spot where he goes up to the top rope and his back is to the center of the ring. And he jumps off and somehow does a sunset flip on Bobby Eaton, which was awesome. Bobby Eaton's a little out of position for it, which you can't blame him for because I don't know how the hell Brian even figured out where he was going to land. But they end up doing a little roll up over that for a really good near fall, which I thought was cool. There's more. I'm going to refer to it from here on out as over the top splaining. Where people get thrown out of the ring and the referee JR has to figure out how to explain why it's not a DQ. Let's see what else we got here. Pillman goes over the top and climbs back to the apron. There's a spot in the middle of this match. There's like a whole section of this match where Pillman's just getting his ass kicked. He gets thrown out of the ring into the guardrail, and then he comes back up and he gets knocked off the apron again, and then he gets in the ring. He takes a ton of huge like finish level moves. But ultimately the Midnight win it because Bobby Eaton pinned Z-Man with a small package, which I thought was the right finish for this match.
It was also a really good finish in a way because if you look at the referee position at that time, referee was facing Zank, excuse me, and Bobby was on the ground, and then Stan comes up out of nowhere and just Sabat kicks him right in the back of the head. and Bobby just rolls him up in a package. So the referee doesn't see anything but Bobby rolling him up in a package. So the placement of where everybody was when I saw that, I was like, man, that was like a perfect finish for that match. So
I
was
also
happy with that.
it was cool too. There was another point in the match where Bryan actually pins Bobby Eaton with a sunset flip. He would have had a 1, 2, 3, but the ref's back is turned. I love spots like that because it gets the faces over even if they lose.
Oh yeah, the fans go nuts. That's a huge spot whenever the face has a heel down, and yeah, they did everything right in this match. There's not much that went wrong. It was
Well, I have one gripe. After the hot tag, when Bryan gets back out on the apron, he pretty much stopped selling everything from the match at that point.
I know.
Which I was like, what the fuck, man? Like,
yeah, maybe something pissed him off or something, and he got in a mood. I don't know why. Usually they try to stay in character, but I have no idea why. I noticed that too. Once he got out, I was like, all right, I feel better now.
yeah, he's like, I'm fine. Yeah, he should have been like laying on the apron out there or something, like barely holding onto the ropes. That would have pulled it together. But it was a really good match overall.
Yeah.
Small complaints. After this match, we go to another Sting promo where, okay, this is the thing. This is the whole thing. It's not a promo.
This is the return of Robo.
So Sting walks down to the ring and he's celebrating, and RoboCop comes out behind him, and the Horsemen grab Sting and throw him in Cornette's cage, which is now about halfway up the ramp because they moved it out of the way. And RoboCop comes out and bends the bars on the cage and takes the door off the cage, and the Horsemen just run back and escape out through the crowd.
Cage wasn't gimmicked at all. RoboCop's just a strong son of a bitch.
I know. Those were steel bars. He puts that outfit on, and
it was all wonky. I don't get Sting walking down to the ring, and you could tell he was trying to kill time. I don't know if they didn't have RoboCop set up yet, or his batteries weren't in, or he wasn't done vaping, or what the hell the deal was. But he doesn't come down until like a few minutes afterward. But whatever, it is what it is. He made his appearance. He got Sting out of the cage, and all is good.
You know what? I didn't think this was that bad. I didn't I didn't like it, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was stupid, but it's like, I don't know. For me, it didn't hurt the show that much. And like, this show is infamous because of that. Like, and it's short too. It's like 2 minutes long. But this show is, I know Sting hates it.
He brings it up all the time. He hates it.
I think it sucks overall, but I mean, in all honesty, it's only a couple minutes of the show, and the show is so good overall that I don't know. It is what it is to me.
Like I said, back when I watched it, when it actually came on the pay-per-view, I was quite pissed off and didn't want to watch it again. But after watching it last night, I'm impressed. I kind of want to watch it again. When
the network came out, I had started watching WCW pay-per-views in chronological order like we are now, and I skipped this because of the RoboCop thing. And I'm like, God, I'm a dumbass. I should have watched it. It was pretty good. Yeah,
they were stepping up their game back here. I mean, it's after Turner bought it. Between 90 and 91 is when they slowly morphed in from NWA to WCW. So they had a lot more money to put into production and everything, but the wrestlers were all very sound. I mean, a lot of the wrestlers, they had a great roster. You look at the roster, it's just stars A to Z, and so they really had to compete as far as their wrestling went. They had to let the wrestling speak volumes, because they didn't really have a lot of crazy characters back then, honestly.
No.
I mean, you pick it apart right now, and you can look at me. Norman was a character, but really, Doom, the Road Warriors, Luger, Flair, the Midnights, there was no real characters. They were wrestlers, and they wrestled, and they did a damn good job at it.
The right after the Sting promo, they immediately cut up to where JR is, or is it Tony Schiavone? I think they cut up Schiavone. They cut up to where Schiavone is, and Junkyard Dog has made his return. This will be his final run.
Yeah, it was good to see Junkyard back there. Can't remember the last pay-per-view he was at WWE, but this is after he left. But yeah, it was good to see him back, and he had a little bit of a run. He was mostly tag team matches and stuff. At this point, he was getting up there in age also, so and big. He was huge. He was such a big dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun watching him come back and be on their side. And he was fun to watch.
They had a fun little spot here with Jim Cornette, which I don't. Jim Cornette comes out to interrupt Junkyard's return by praising the Midnight and making fun of JYD. He asked JYD where he's been all this time, and JYD says he's been at Jim's house, Jim's mom's house.
Yeah, he gives Jim's mom's address. That's my mother's house. That was funny.
And then Cornette gets him. He says, "Oh, you better worry about that big guy behind you." And JYD turns around. When he turns back, Jim is about to swing on him with a racket, and JR catches it. I thought that, or JR catches it. JYD catches it. I thought this was cool. I liked it.
It was, man. Corny was so fun to watch. He was always the star of the show. That's why I can't believe they put him in a cage for that match. This is the kind of stuff that he would do. So I think they might have just, people were still longing to see a good Cornette spot, so they did that with him with JYD. And yeah, it went over really well. It was fun.
Yeah, it was a cool little bonus little segment there. The next match is the Rock and Roll versus the Freebirds, and this match, well, we'll get into it. Let's just start from the
mixed on this one.
I'm not. You know what? I'm not a big fan of the Freebirds. I think is what it is.
Yeah, you've said that before. You're not a big fan of Michael Hayes of Freebirds.
Their matches are mostly rest holds. Like, they just don't do much. They're a lot of showboat, and that's about it to me.
Yeah. Like I said, they're antagonists. They like to get the crowd ramped up and pissed off, and they do a good job with that. But as far as, like, I don't know. And when you put them, I think there's matches with them in the Steiners. There's matches with them and Zink and Pillman. They were a little better than this one. I think the Rock and Roll was more polished as a tag team, obviously, because they've been around forever and they worked together forever. And they were such good faces as a tag team. They could get that crowd into the match. And the first 10 minutes of this match was all Rock and Roll doing their crazy tricks and stuff. And it's almost like Three Stooges type stuff. They just make the Freebirds look like idiots.
Yeah. What did you think of the jukebox entrance for the Rock and Roll, where it it slides the wrong way halfway down the ramp?
Yeah, it hits the rail on the way out, and Ricky Morton almost bites the dirt. You can see Ricky Morton smiling, having a good time. And boy, he jumps out of character as soon as it hits the rail. You look on his face, and he's like, "I'll beat your ass." I don't know how they were rolling that thing out. I don't know if that was a forklift or if that was an actual, because I think they do it again on the Great American Bash, but I think it was a cart that they had that on and there was somebody pushing it.
That's what I think too, and I think maybe one of the guys just wasn't pushing hard enough and they just kind of went sideways.
Or just, who knows? I don't know. I don't know if they had it on a pallet jack or what the case was, but yeah, he couldn't steer for shit.
The gimmick for this match, which is weird, is that every corner has a leather strap in it instead of them having them on their wrists, which is typically how a strap match would be done.
And that's what it was advertised as far as Jim Ross goes. Jim Ross was talking about it all this time up until then, saying, yeah, they're going to have a strap between the two and the wrist. And that's what he thought it was going to be. And then they come out with these straps.
It's like BDSM strap, BDSM whips.
Yeah, it wasn't even, they were so lame. They were like these strands of, I don't know, I guess leather, but they were taped together with masking tape, and there were no scars or welts or anything. And I mean, we make fun of WWE so much, but this past Monday, Rey Mysterio's son came out and wore Seth Rollins' ass out with a kendo stick, and he had welts all over him. And, as much of a fairy tale as that one is, to see them with these straps and hitting each other, and there's not even red marks.
It would have been a better match without the straps at all, honestly.
They didn't need them. It could have been a good solid match without the straps. The straps were added comedy to it, but yeah, they didn't need straps for this one.
My favorite thing for Michael Hayes in this match is he gets in a little argument with the fans at ringside while he's trying to get heat on himself, and they pan over to the crowd, and it looks like he's arguing with the cast of The Hills Have Eyes. Like, just these two decrepit old dudes that look like walking corpses. And it's like, what the fuck? Don't show the crowd if they look like that. Because it's like, why do I care if he's pissing that guy off? That just makes it funnier.
Yeah. Mike was good at getting in the crowd's face and doing that kind of thing. Man, I was going to say something. I completely lost it now. Shoot.
Was it the Bob Caudle line? There's a good Bob Caudle line in this match.
Oh, is there? What is it? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I forgot.
Bob Caudle says that these guys can't look away, can't cross their eyes, or they might get hit with them straps. And I immediately thought that, Robert Gibson's going to have a hell of a hard time in this one.
Well, maybe he would have he might have knocked his eyes straight again. But Yeah, and I thought they actually had a promo earlier in the pay-per-view with the Rock and Roll Express, and Robert's talking in sign language. He has his sister's death, so every time Ricky would talk, Robert would do it all in sign language, and it was just so funny watching him with one eye going this way and one eye going this way doing sign language.
I didn't know that that's what he was doing. I didn't know what he was doing with his hands.
He did it with a majority of their interviews when they would do them. He would do it in sign language because his sister was deaf, so he would always do that for his sister.
Okay, that's actually really cool. I actually left that promo off because I was just like, there's just nothing to talk about there. But had I known that, it's a little strange that the normal rules still apply despite the leather strap. So you would think this would be a no DQ match, but the referee gives a count for Jimmy Garvin because he's rubbing Robert's face into the mat, which is they do that a couple times.
Pick up the strap and meet him instead.
Yeah, don't do that. That's a DQ. Like you're not just silly logic. But Gibson finally gets the hot tag, and he gets cut off when Garvin gets in the ring. Hayes hits the DDT, but doesn't cover Gibson, and instead he goes for a second DDT. He's not here yet. But Morton comes off the top rope for a sunset flip on Michael Hayes, and that's how they get the finish. Whatever. I mean,
there's two things I really liked about this match, and that's what I was going to say, is while the Rock and Roll are controlling everything and setting the tone and getting the crowd all amped up, there's one point where I'm not sure, I can't remember how he actually gets over to Hayes, but Hayes pops him with a left, and Hayes has such a great left hand. It's quick. You never see it coming, and he popped him, and that's what started the whole, them beating up on Ricky before the hot tag to Robert.
okay.
But I thought that left hand was awesome. He was always he and Arn Anderson had the best left hands he was so quick with it. And so I was impressed with that. And I was actually impressed with the end, too. I liked how they did the ending because, like you said, it was kind of wonky as far as the timing goes because Michael was trying to go for the second DDT. And then on the outside, Jimmy was trying to give a DDT to Ricky. But Ricky jumps up on the top turnbuckle and does the sunset flip. One thing, Ricky's not the legal man. Robert was.
Yep.
But it was still kind of cool to watch to see that happen. I like that finish a little bit, but yeah, I think Robert should have been the one doing the flipping because he was a legal man.
This match lost me. I couldn't stay interested. I don't know. I'm just not interested in the Freebirds, and I tune out. I tend to tune out. I don't know. I can't help it. I like when Hayes is doing his showboat gimmicky stuff, like in the opening and their entrance, but I don't like watching them wrestle. I don't know.
Yeah, I like the match because it was a Rock and Roll. I love watching Rock and Roll. So it was fun for me to watch, and I like the Freebirds too. Me and you differ in opinion with them.
Yeah.
I thought they were a good heel team. I think they did a good job of like I said, they're antagonists, and I think they did a good job of that.
Yep.
It just didn't mesh well with the Rock and Roll.
I think that's what it is. Is like the only two matches I've seen from the Freebirds recently would be the last one, which was Pillman and Zank, and then this one, which is the Rock and Roll. And I don't think they look as good as they could when they're in there with guys that are younger and more athletic than they are.
Right.
So I think
at the Bash, when we get to the Bash, they wrestled the Steiners.
So that might be a better one.
It was good. It was a good match. We'll get to that one. That one was really good. But they really, by the time they get to the Bash, they've really amped up the makeup and the glitter, and you'll see it's pretty crazy.
After this match ends, we have the return of Doug Furner. I don't know if is this his debut or
no,
return?
This is his debut.
Okay,
this was his debut. This is when he first started. Of course, he's world's strongest man. They bill him as, which Mark Henry could pick his teeth with Doug Furnace, but
yeah. He looks good. I don't know. He's not going to go very far, as we'll see later on. But he has he has a good physique, I think.
Yeah, he does. He does well too. He'll wrestle. He does his debut. I think it's his debut. It may not have been. I don't know. It was his first pay-per-view match. I know for sure at the Bash. He wrestles Dutch Mantel.
Oh.
But he looks good. He does a good job against him.
Okay. Well,
hell of a belly suplex.
I'm looking forward to seeing him wrestle. The only thing I know of Doug Furnace is his time in WWE in the mid-90s where he's just, I can't remember what his gimmick is, but he's given us...
Wasn't he with Eric Watts?
I can't remember. I think doesn't he end up being...
Future Tron, some gimmick,
some weird shit.
They were some kind of futuristic thing, and I believe it was him and Eric Watts that they teamed together, which Eric Watts was terrible. but his dad was big and was able to get him in there and do what he does. But
after the Doug Furnace promo, we get another Sting promo, and Sting hypes up Luger, who is suffering from a staph infection in his knee. Was this legitimate?
it's legit.
Okay.
Yes. Luger was definitely sick. He didn't want to be there. I wasn't there, so I'm pretty much speaking for him. But when you see when he comes down to the ring, I mean, we still got another match to go, but you'll see when he comes down to the ring, he is in pain when he's walking. He does have a little bit of a limp. I mean, I'm sure he probably took a shitload of pain meds just to get through the match. I mean, a staph infection is no joke. But he was there. He was there, and he made it through the whole pay-per-view, and he got through the match, and they kept on bringing that up throughout the whole night, not only to stir up, worry about what happened with Flair, but they didn't know if the match was going to get cut short because they didn't know how much Luger would be able to do. But once Luger got out there and the adrenaline kicked in, he actually gave a pretty good performance.
Yeah, I
legit.
I like how they did the same thing with Luger that they did with Sting at Wrestle War, where they're the injuries and things like that make the faces better underdogs, and then you have the heels healthy and still on top. So it builds more anticipation for what's going to happen to the heels when they finally get.
Right.
So I don't know. I liked that they kept it going and made Luger out to be a hero with Sting. In like the same way that they did with Sting at Wrestle War. Our next match after this promo is Doom versus the Steiners, which starts off with Rick stealing the do-rag from Teddy that he's wearing to hide his haircut.
Exposing his bad haircut, that he got his dreads cut.
His whole dreads are gone now.
That was funny, though. That was pretty funny.
Teddy's
great.
I like Teddy's on the outside, and the camera guys keep trying to get up close on him, and he keeps yelling at the cameraman.
Get away from me! Get away from me!
That shit's funny. He was really good, and I was impressed.
This was a good match. I always enjoyed watching the Steiners and Doom. They always work really, really well together. But going back to the earlier match, I don't think this match was ready for this. I knew when we were watching it, actually, when it was happening, I knew Doom were going to take the titles. Yeah. This was the second coming of Doom. They were really beefing them up. They had Teddy Long in their corner. I knew they were going to take the titles off the Steiners. But I think I would have held that off until the Bash.
I would have waited too. I don't know that Doom. I would have wanted Doom to not lose, so like maybe a DQ finish, which is not ideal. But I don't know. I couldn't pick a winner for this one.
I wanted to see the Doom and Road Warriors. I think they should have been Doom and Road Warriors. I think Doom should have went over the Road Warriors, and then went on to the Bash to face the Steiners. And you'll find out why later on at the Bash when you see. It's Doom actually defends the titles against the Rock and Roll Express, which isn't a bad match. It's actually a good match, but
why?
The Rock and Roll, I think if they would have put them with the Steiners, I think it'd have been a much, much better match.
This match was really tight, really snug. A lot of big guys, a lot of power moves. Scotty, right at the beginning, hits a huge power slam, which I would say is close to as good as Animal's.
Yeah.
And then he hits a big German suplex on Ron Simmons, and Ron Simmons is a big fucking dude. So for him to get him over for a German suplex and have him land safely, like, impressed me a lot, especially for Scott Steiner, who's known to be a little bit reckless.
Well, now he is. I mean, back then he was in better shape. Right now he's reckless because he has so many injuries. He can't do what he used to do, but he still does it.
Right.
But back then when he was younger, and God, the guy was humongous, and I don't know who the hell cut his hair, but back then he looked like he got his head caught in a ceiling fan. But he had so much power, and he could pull off that tilt-a-whirl slam, and he could pull off the power slams, and he could pull off those bear hug suplexes, and they were just so strong. They could pull it off then. But as he got older, he wanted to keep doing the same thing, and he just wasn't in the shape to do it. And the other person had to actually do most of the work, and he was starting to hurt people. But these guys wrestled each other so many times. They knew each other so well that I don't think it was possible for them to have a bad match.
Butch Reed has a really good looking high knee that he throws at Scotty. It's not on the level of Bossman Zenziguri, but I think it's pretty close.
Yeah, Butch Reed he's another legend. He's been around forever and ever and ever, and had some really great matches with Ric Flair back in like the late 70s, early 80s.
I haven't seen a lot of Reed.
No, he was well, he was in WWE for a little while too. Before this, he came back to do the Doom thing, but right before that, he was in WWE. He was the Natural, and
Okay.
he came out with blonde hair, and he called himself the Natural. He was in the tournament at WrestleMania 4 for the WWE title,
Okay.
but then he comes back and he does this. Before that, he was in NWA, but he's a good talent. He's a big dude. He's got a great face. He just looks pissed all the time. So he's always been a heel. I don't know. I've never known him to be a face, and he was just always a great heel.
I don't. I guess my generation, I just don't know a lot about Hacksaw Butch Reed up to this point, and I know a lot about Ron Simmons. So I was pretty impressed because I don't know. Normally in tag teams, there's that one guy that's like gonna go to the moon, which was Ron Simmons, and I don't think Butch Reed's around for a lot longer after this time.
Yeah, this was pretty much his twilight. Also, he was this was nearing the end of his career as well. Ron Simmons, I don't know what they were in age difference, but I'm sure that Butch was much older than Ron. Um, Ron had that similar face, that angry face that played off well as a heel, but he could also play a great face also, and people loved him. People loved Ron Simmons, and they hated Ron Simmons when he was a heel. But he could float either way. He was really inspirational when he was a face, and he was pissed everybody off when he was a heel. He was really good at whatever he did.
I think he looked really good in this match, especially for me because I haven't seen a lot of his matches. I was pretty impressed with him. The finish comes when Rick Steiner attempts a belly-to-belly from the top rope on Reed, but Simmons hits Rick Steiner in the back with an axe handle and then pulls his hair backwards, which causes Reed to pin Rick Steiner for the win. I like this finish. I can tell you don't.
No, I thought it was a little wonky.
I thought it was cool. I liked it. It was different.
It was different. I don't know. I maybe if he would have tried the belly to back and then Teddy held his leg down or something, I think I would have bought it a little more. But when they fell and they landed, it was kind of the whole cover was kind of weird. I don't know. I think I would have done a little bit more fluidly maybe, but it wasn't a bad idea for the finish. I think I just would have tweaked a little bit.
What do you think of Scotty's Frankensteiner? Because I've seen it done well, and I've seen it done really bad a lot of times.
It's tough to get a 300-pound muscle-bound freak up in the air like that and wrap his legs around your head and flip you over. So I mean, it was very impressive to see somebody like him doing that move, but there were times that it wasn't that impressive. But
No.
he had it down to a science for a while where he'd throw him in the ropes and the timing was perfect. Where when he did it off the ropes, it was perfect. It looked really, really good. But then as time went on, he had a harder and harder time getting up there to do that flip. So
I thought that the one in this match that he hits is really good because of Butch Reed, because it just looks like they're both exhausted and it's kind of out of nowhere when he hits it. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but whatever happened, it looked really good. I liked it in this match. But I've also seen it a lot of times where I cringe and I'm like, it looks like it doesn't look good at all. It just didn't get all the way over.
Yeah, well, at this time too, it was fairly new, so you didn't see a lot of guys using it, let alone a 300-pound muscle-bound, guy jumping up and doing that. It was usually, it was usually the smaller guys that did it. It wouldn't have been a surprise to see Pillman do it, or somebody like that, but of smaller stature. But seeing him get up there and do it, it's really impressive to watch him do it. But then, like I said, when you get that much weight in the air, a lot of things can go wrong.
What goes up must come down.
It must come down. If your buddy doesn't, and like I said, it was a newer move at that time, so some people knew how to take it and others didn't. It was wonky. It was weird. It was new.
After this match ends, we're finally on to the main event, which is Lex Luger versus Ric Flair in a steel cage match. I found it a little strange that Luger still has the U.S. title.
See, this is again, I'd have to go back to the Clash and see if he even defended the title then, because I can't remember him having any U.S. title defenses.
Unless they did it on TV or something.
Maybe he may have. I know he defended against Tommy Rich a few times, but I think at this point when he was turning face again, I'm not sure what happened. I have to go back and look. But yeah, he still has the U.S. title. Well, they didn't want to take it off him because they knew they weren't going to put the world belt on. So they had to have him in the U.S. with the U.S. title, which was perfect for him. But yeah, a lot of things in this match were a little weird. They set it up as a cage match. They used the old Thunderdoom match from Halloween Havoc the year before, which covered the entire ring and the outside of the ring, which made it a little more versatile. They could wrestle outside the ring and up the ring, and Flair spent most of the time on the cage trying to climb the hell out of it, which was fun. But then, after you get your head bounced off it, like Jim Ross said, he just bouncing his head off that. I don't know how many more times you want to jump up there and try that.
Yeah.
But I liked the cage. I really liked that they used this cage in it, but then the ending was terrible, which we'll get to in a minute.
I was going to say that too. I like the barred cage better than the fencing because it's stiffer. Like the mesh just kind of crumbles when you hit it. It has a lot of give to it, but the steel bars don't. And I think that's much better for a wrestling match.
Yeah, and this one did have a little bit of give, so you weren't really worried about getting too hurt either, because it wasn't like it wasn't like the Hell in a Cell or like the old bars that they used to use in WWE. The blue bars were solid steel.
Yeah.
This one was it was a little shaky, and they were on hinges and stuff, so it gave a little bit of give, so you weren't worried about getting hurt or cracking your head off it or anything else. But Flair's a bloody mess by the end of this. Plus, when in the beginning, what we were talking about with Lex being hurt, he's limping down to the ring. I don't know if you caught the part where there's a cameraman follow him, and he gets a little bit close to Luger, and Luger looks right at him and says, "Get the fuck out of my way."
I didn't see that.
Yeah, you got to watch his lips. He says it because he's not happy. He's really hurt. He's not happy. He doesn't want to be there.
Why do you think he's here? Because, do you think he could have not shown up, or they could have given him the night off?
What were they going to do? They advertised a cage match with Luger and Flair. Luger set the stipulation. He wanted the cage to keep the Horsemen out. So, this injury happened like 2 weeks early. He was in the hospital for over a week. They keep on saying he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I think he was in the hospital for like 8 days. But still, he's in the hospital that long. His temperature was up in the high hundreds, but over 100. And of course, it's his knee. Which, what does Flair go after? Your knee. So all the elements were there, but I think maybe he just said, he knew he had to go. I don't think he would try to get out of it. He just wasn't happy. He was hurt. He didn't want to do it. But who else are they going to use? They couldn't put Sting in there yet.
Yeah.
They already had Graham at the Bash. They couldn't put JYD in there. There was really nobody else to take his place. Who else would have fought with Flair that would have made it more interesting enough for people to want to buy the pay-per-view?
I guess so. It's tough, but that's just what the wrestling business was at this point.
Yeah, and I also think that's another reason why Ross sold it so much during the whole. Almost every match, he would mention Lex Luger and talk about how he's got a staph infection in his leg and he's been in the hospital for all this time and he's running fevers and blah blah blah. They sold it the whole pay-per-view, and a majority of this pay-per-view was almost like an infomercial for the Bash anyway, because they kept bringing up Sting's return. Sting will be back at the Bash. Sting's going to be at the Bash, and they kept bringing it up. So I think this was a big prelude to the Bash, especially at the end of this, where Sting and Flair actually finally do get in each other's face.
Yeah. The match itself, I thought was actually better than the Wrestle War match, despite Luger's injury.
Really? That's surprising.
I did think so. And I think it's because of the extra gimmicks, the cage, the blood. In the beginning of the match, the referee does the checking for foreign object spot. He ends up finding a weapon in woman's glove, which, again, I just assume is brass knuckles.
It's like a rolled up piece of paper.
Yeah. Luger doesn't want to start the match until she gets checked, though, which is cool because Flair keeps jumping in front and being like, "You don't need to check her. You don't need to look," which I thought was good. It was a good way to buy some time and have something going on and give Luger a bit of a break before.
That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
They were trying to drag it out. And if you go back and watch the match again, and I noticed it last night because I knew what kind of pain he was in. But that's why there were so many spots with Flair climbing the cage trying to get out. And, there's only a few of, he did a couple gorilla presses and used his power. But for the most part, Luger stayed on the ground and did a lot of clotheslining and a lot of kicking and a lot of bouncing his head off the cage.
Just like 37 10-punch spots in this match.
Yeah.
Every time
match was because he did his leg was shot. I don't like the spot in the match where he does the superplex, and that's where they say he hurt his knee.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Do a knee drop or a leg drop or something that would have, he did a superplex and he lands and all of a sudden his knee hurts, so Flair gets up and capitalizes on that. I didn't get that spot, but
I thought that Luger looked better as far as his charisma goes in this match, though, and it might have been because he was pissed off and he was just running on adrenaline. But
Most likely, he was probably happy he was able to get to the match. He was probably worried he was going to get in there and not be able to do shit, and they'd have to cut it short. So he's probably, once the adrenaline kicked in, he's probably just happy that he could last. I'm sure Flair was probably asking him the whole time, "You okay? You okay?"
Oh yeah, Flair was super good with him in this match. It's just another testament to Flair.
Took care of him.
My favorite thing Luger does in this match is he gets chopped like 3 times in the chest by Flair, and they're loud, hard chops. And then he just does a peck dance in response. That's the Lex Luger that I like. I like Lex Luger when he's an asshole like that. It's hilarious.
Yeah, he used to do that a lot. That was funny. But yeah, and the chops you can see in Lex's chest or Sting's chest or Steamboat's chest. Anybody who gets in the ring with Flair, once you get some of those chops, your chest looks like hamburger by the end of it. That's a lot better than the straps that were going on in the Rock and Roll Express match.
Yeah, chops are fucking brutal. Like they do hurt.
Chop the shit out of you in our swimming pool.
Don't tell people that. That could be misconstrued as child abuse. Flair goes up to the top. They do that over the up and over spot where Luger whips Flair into the corner, and Flair goes over the top onto the apron, runs the apron, goes to the top rope, and it looks like he's going to make the jump, and he does, but Luger catches him with a clothesline, which I thought was awesome, and then he does the old man flop. I love that spot because it made Luger look really good, and Luger had to do nothing for it, and I loved it.
Yeah, you can tell Luger. There wasn't a lot of high impact. Luger was taking care of himself. Flair was taking care of Luger, and Flair loves that spot. That's one of his favorite spots, to do that flip over the top rope and then run to the corner. And either he gets clotheslined on the corner, or he gets clotheslined as he's coming off, or he gets kicked or something. He never. I probably count on one hand how many times that shit worked for him. But, yeah, that's class. That's what Flair was, though. He was a good defensive wrestler. He was really good at making the other guy look good. And he made Luger look great in this one. He really did. Luger looked awesome. Luger dominated that whole match. He beat the shit out of Flair.
He got Luger over with me in this match because in Wrestle War I didn't care about the match. Like, I just couldn't get into it at all because I just wasn't impressed by Luger. But I think the injury actually made Luger better in this match because Flair was trying extra hard to make it look good, and Luger has that adrenaline knowing like, oh, I can actually, I'm hurt, but we're still doing a decent match here.
Yeah, I think during the middle of the match, you see there's a couple times where Luger just really pops for the crowd, does his posing and stuff, and I think then I was watching, I was like, yeah, he must be totally juiced right now on adrenaline. That's why he's happy that he is.
I like Luger. I like this side of Luger. I hope we see more of this Luger than the last one where he doesn't seem as interested. Flair ends up taking a superplex from Luger, like you said, which is what hurts Luger's knee finally. And that's where Ric Flair kind of goes to town on the knee. Luger does a good job of selling, but I don't know how much effort it took considering he was in legitimate pain. Flair gets...
It's probably a break for Luger, actually.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, he got to lay on the mat while Flair jumped up and down on his knee, so he got to get a little bit of rest.
Yeah. Yeah, you could look at it that way. Flair gets the figure 4 locked in and uses the ropes for leverage, which the referee warns him about again. Like, why are you going to count him out in a cage match for using the ropes for leverage?
Yeah, now we're getting to the part where I didn't like. To me, cage matches are no disqualification. Period. You're in a cage. People get hit with chairs in the cage. They get hit with the cage. There's blood everywhere. It should be a no disqualification type thing. And him using the ropes or doing anything, it should have been no holds barred. I mean, he should have been allowed to do whatever he wanted to do, and but then again, then it would have taken away from woman being in there, and it would have taken away from that whole beginning part. But still, I mean, the whole idea of there being a disqualification or even a chance for a disqualification was just like, why was that in there?
Yeah,
I think Flair should have went over in this one. I mean, we'll get to the end, but I'll talk more about it.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. The ending, the finish to this match is weird. I liked it though. It's another one of those things where I kind of liked it. I know that you didn't, but I was kind of into it. The Horsemen come down to the ring as Luger starts to make a comeback, as it looks like Luger is going to win, and then Sting comes down and basically throws himself to the Lions, trying to take out the Horsemen, but he ends up getting triple teamed. But little do the Horsemen know that Elegante is here with Sting, and he's going to lumber all over the place and do not shit.
Gonzalez.
So this is the debut of Elegante, who later would be wearing a naked man suit at WrestleMania. And he helps Sting to stave off the Horseman from ringside. What happens is the cage ends up getting lifted a little bit, and Wyndham slips under, and Ole has control of the cage now, allegedly.
They brought it up several times during the pay-per-view that Ole was checking out the cage and was walking around and checking things out and see if there's any weaknesses or anything else. So that's where they built up to that he came down and commandeered the cage and lifted it up so Barry could come in and cause the DQ.
Yeah.
I just don't. I didn't like that part of it. I don't know. I mean, I think they could have done so much more. I was really hoping when I watched this, because you see, was it Mike? What's his name?
Kyoto?
The referee in this one. No, it wasn't. Mike Atkins was the referee.
Oh,
in this
right.
one.
Yeah, Atkins.
And he sticks the foreign object that he takes off a woman in his pocket. I was kind of visioning like the referee getting knocked down, Flair taking it out of his pocket, and then hitting, there's something. I don't know. I was just looking for something a little different. I think Flair should have went over one way or another if he would have cheated or however. Obviously, he would have had to cheat, but to have a disqualification inside the cage, everybody's been amped up about this. Everybody was looking forward to it, and this cage comes over the top, and you're like, oh my God, no one's getting into this cage. And then they lift the cage, and somebody gets in and causes disqualification. It was so disappointing, at this point. And at this point, 90, you got to think you're into the storyline. I was really into the Sting storyline with him being injured. I was really into the storyline with Lex, and I wanted to see Lex take the belt. I wanted to see anybody take the belt. We kind of knew he wasn't going to whenever they started announcing Sting's making his return at the Bash. And we're like, oh, they're going to put him with Flair.
Yeah.
So we knew what was coming, but man, to have that disqualification was just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
How the hell?
Cage matches should not have disqualifications, for one. And
No.
second of all, you still could have done all the same things you did and had Flair go over clean, which should have happened. Because Flair going over Luger clean just means that Flair's got more heat on him for Sting. Luger doesn't lose anything by losing this match because he has a staph infection. So Luger lost to Flair with a staph infection in a cage match while the Horsemen, quadruple teamed him. So how does that hurt Luger at all? So it would have just made more sense.
Climactic. As soon as you seen the Horsemen come down, you were like, shit, now what? But, I don't know. I kind of wanted more for Flair because what it did is it weakened Flair.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit.
Flair's going into a match with Sting. We all knew that. We all got that from the promo. Sting is going to wrestle Flair for the title. So why not make Flair look like the badass that Flair always was instead of making him look like a pansy ass where he needs help to win, especially against Luger, who's hurt already. Put the figure 4 on him. Luger doesn't have to give up, pass out.
Right.
He could have put it on him, and then Luger passed out from the pain. Blah 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 blah. Ric Flair is brutal, and then go from there. But yeah, I don't know.
The finish itself is not what I liked, but I like the Horseman involvement. I like Ole playing that, like, I don't know, Castle Grayskull Masters of the Universe character where he's like, I have the cage. Like, I don't know. I like that. I like the Horsemen in their current form because they're scary. Like, they are legitimately scary. They're hurting people intentionally, and they're just really good heels, and their promos are great. So I like their involvement, but just having a DQ finish to a cage match in the main event of a pay-per-view for the world title is just unacceptable. They're just poorly booked, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was known that the Horsemen were there to make sure Flair keeps the title, and Ole actually said that in the promo earlier with the Horsemen. He said that nobody's taking that title off of Flair, no matter what. I think they took credibility away from Flair too much with that kind of a finish. I think I don't know, they should have done something a little different. Flair gets out of the cage. They finally get the cage up. Elegante's down there in his hole. He looks like he just left the VR convention. And then, they're talking to Sting or talking to Flair. Flair's all bloody, which Flair's at his best when he's all bloody and crazy-eyed and stuff.
Oh,
gives
my
a great
God.
promo. He's wiping his blood all over Shivani.
I loved
all over and grabbing his sleeve.
Shivani starts to ask Flair a question, and Flair just goes, woo, in his face. There's blood everywhere. That shit was great. I love that Flair. I think we got the best Flair and the best Luger in this match, surprisingly. But, yeah, like you said, the finish, not so great. We already kind of did a little bit of if you had the pencil, if I had the pencil. I think that whatever makes Luger look good and makes Flair look good and gets them over for the bashes,
Right.
the
Well,
best
in the
thing.
end, they did what they wanted to do. You got, Sting runs down and finally starts fighting Flair, which we've been waiting since January to see this.
Right.
You wanted to see Sting get his hands on Flair, but he couldn't because he was hurt. Now he's getting better, he's healing, and he runs down, gets his hands on Flair, and that was the biggest pop of the night, and that was be continued for the Bash. And in the end, if you really look at it, either way, if Luger would have lost or whatever, it wouldn't have hurt his credibility because he had the U.S. title still. So it doesn't matter if he would have went over or not. He's still going to go into the Bash with his U.S. title and be able to defend it. So I don't know. They could have done a little bit different, but like I said, from the whole thing leading up to this match, just seemed like a whole infomercial for the Bash.
I think that your view of it is different because you saw it when it happened. For me,
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I saw a really solid pay-per-view that was pretty enjoyable. I think if the only thing I would change is the match times. I would have made all the matches a little bit shorter, and I think the show would have been much better that way. And then the finish to the end of it, that's all it really needed, and it would have been on par with the Bash, I think, with those and the RoboCop shit out of here.
And it's easy for us to sit here and say what I would have done. We always have our little segment that we do with it. If I had the pencil, but we don't know what was going on at that point. We don't know who agreed with what and what, all that kind of thing. But I would have done a little differently, but it doesn't mean that it was a bad pay-per-view. I still enjoyed every bit of it. I enjoyed the Flair and Luger match. I have no complaints. I was really happy watching the whole thing, and we do our 5 stars or whatever. I give it a solid 4.
I would say, yeah, 4 stars is good. It was a really good show that I've never watched because RoboCop, and I'm glad I finally went back and watched it. And I had a good time. I watched it all the way through. I took no breaks. Yeah, it was an easy watch, unlike the Rumble, which was miserable. So yeah, it was solid ups.
If you cut out the RoboCop stuff and you change some of the wonky finishes, it would have been a great pay-per-view. And when we get up to the Bash, like I said, they consistently got better and better and better. And then the Bash is probably one of my all-time favorite, if not my favorite pay-per-view of all time. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that one.
I'm really excited to watch the Bash, but unfortunately we have one roadblock ahead of it, and that is WrestleMania 6.
Yeah, WrestleMania 6 was good, so I'm going to enjoy watching this one again. It's going to be a lot better than the Royal Rumble. It's tough after watching WCW to go and watch WWF, but we got to keep an open mind and hope for the best. And I think WrestleMania 6 is one of their better efforts. It was still character-driven, but there's some good matches in this one, too.
There are some good matches. I did do a little bit of looking ahead. The match times are pretty short up until the main event, but we know the main event is actually really, really solid when it shouldn't have been on paper. So,
and again, loaded card. This one, I didn't count the matches. Maybe 8 matches they had on this one, 7 or 8 matches.
Something like that.
I think WrestleMania maybe have 10 or 12. They always loaded up with a lot of matches, but they were short matches and weren't quite the quality that you had in this one.
Well, we'll talk more about that next week. We get to see my boy Warrior win the championship for the first time. Other than that, we the only thing we need is something to play us out with. What should it be this week, do you think? It's a tough one. There wasn't too much wonkiness on this one.
I think it should be the RoboCop theme.
Oh yeah. Yeah, how about one of the better scenes from RoboCop? I'll do a little bit of digging, and that's what we'll play out with since
That sounds good.
RoboCop is the star of this show. But anyway, guys, that's Wrestling with My Dad. I also stream retro games on Twitch. You can find me at twitch.tv/ScorpionBLS with a K. Dad is running our wrestling Facebook group for Wrestling with My Dad, which will be in the description. You can join us there and talk about all these old pay-per-views and how much Dad's audio sucks and how my titles...
That's going to be fixed soon. I'm sorry, guys. We'll have this fixed, hopefully by next time.
It will be fixed by next time, whether one way or another. I have a plan we'll talk about once we end here. Other than that, we'll see you guys next week for WrestleMania 6. Thanks for tuning in. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and check out this scene from RoboCop.
Yes, please comment on our Facebook and on our YouTube. We're not thin-skinned. We can take it. So even family, relatives, whatever, if there's something you think we need to change, let us know.
Yeah, like if you hate how much bigger my belt is than Dad's, or how my shirt's actually a retro vintage wrestling shirt and he's wearing like a Bray Wyatt WWE shop thing. I bought some Bray Wyatt shirts too, so it's fair game.
You can't do about the dog, though. That's not going to change. I can't do anything about the dog.
Natty's going to be here every week because she's the official mascot, just like Zazzles is for my stream.
All right, till next week, guys. Appreciate you watching. Appreciate you taking your time to check us out. And looking forward to WrestleMania 6 from the Sky Dome next week.
Brother! We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Now, no shit from either one of you. And don't try to follow me.
We won't.
The baby's going with me.
No.
I'll kill it, man. I'll do it. I'll freaking kill it.
We can't have that.
Shyster! He's one of mine. I want him back on his feet.
Well, maybe he will be, or maybe we'll just sell the parts for scrap. That's up to us. You see, RoboCop's off warranty.
Murph, wake up, will ya?
Good morning.
Come on, take him out. Murph,
I think we should talk.
what's with you, Murph? Hands on top of your heads. Nobody move.
You are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
He's dead, Murphy.
You have the right to an attorney.
You're reading Miranda to a corpse.
I'm having trouble. Oh my. This isn't very nice. Though you may think you're having fun now, you only hurt the one you love. Think of Mom and Dad. What kind of lesson are you teaching them? And now, a word on nutrition.
Jed, he's fucked up.
Bad language makes for bad feelings.
Let's go.
The point is, we all have to work. I haven't finished.
Hit the gas, Murphy.
The posted limit is 35. We should set an example, Anne. Your hair looks lovely that way.
It's OCP. They did something to you.
I'm fine. Isn't the moon wonderful tonight?
It's still daytime.
It's the thought that counts.
Oh, Jesus. We're heading back to the station. That's all there is to it.
Waste makes haste, for time is fleeting. A rolling stone is worth two in the bush.
Go fuck a refrigerator, peckerneck!
Bad language makes for bad feelings.
You're nuts! Murphy, come on, let's go. Come on.
Back! Thank you for not smoking.